Let's take you back now to our top story. And Turkish warplanes have struck targets in northeastern Syria on the third day of a massive offensive against Kurdish militias. Well, we can speak now to Edward Djerejian, a former US ambassador to Syria who is in Houston at the moment. Thanks very much indeed for joining us today on BBC World News. What is your view of what is going on? Are Turkey within their rights to take this action or not?
Well, Turkey's self-defined legitimate interests are, one, the PKK, the Kurdish group that they have defined as a terrorist group, which they've been battling for many years, and that they want to secure their border with Syria, where the PKK exists. The second thing is the fundamental consideration of the Turkish leadership is the 3.6 million Syrian refugees who are in Turkey and that are causing more and more popular opposition, if you will. So those are the two determining factors and interests of Turkey in this military operation to create a so-called safe zone that's approximately 300 miles long and about 20 miles wide on the Turkish-Syrian border. The problem, of course, is that any military action, once you enter into it, you enter into the fog of war. You don't know where it's going to lead. And the Middle East is now so perplexed with so many crises in Yemen, the Syrian civil war itself, the protests in Iraq, the list is very, very long. The confrontations in the Gulf between Saudi Arabia and Iran, that this is another destabilizing factor in the region.
It does seem that American policy on this is confused. President Trump offering to mediate, which some people might think is a slightly bizarre offer, and yet others, Republicans and Democrats, saying Turkey should face sanctions for this action. Yes,
the Congress is certainly largely opposed to the Turkish military operation. Various bills are being introduced by Republicans and Democrats on a bipartisan basis to sanction Turkey, either high-level Turkish officials close to Erdogan, sanctions on energy, Turkish energy interests, and sanctions on the Turkish military. So these proposals are winding their way through Congress. Whether or not the president will veto these or not has to be seen. But one of the fundamental factors here, to respond to your question, is yes, there's a confusion in American policy. First of all, President Trump, as you well know, is inherently opposed to these, what he calls these never-ending wars in the Middle East. He wants to get out. He wants to get out of Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria. And yet he has been held back by his military and State Department and NSC advisors throughout the last 2 years, saying that this would be too destabilizing.
Well,
the real question,
also, the Kurdish, militias did support the US in trying to fight IS and were praised for that effort. And now, of course, there's potentially thousands of IS prisoners that the Kurdish could release. I mean, this is potentially, again, a huge disaster in the making, isn't it?
Well, the Kurdish dilemma is, it's tragic. I mean, if you go back to World War I, the Kurds are the largest population, certainly in the region, if not the world, that have never achieved self-determination. And that's one of the basic underlying causes, is that they've been seeking at least autonomy. So you're right, the SDF largely banned by Kurdish
Djerejian, I'm so sorry, I'm going to have to interrupt and cut in. We're out of time in this half an hour. We will speak to you again, I'm sure, before long. Thanks very much for joining us. We're back in a few minutes.